as we move this forward a little bit of recruiting news came out. Okay. In the last week, it's almost like lose a running back, gain a running back in Jaden Lamar, and then obviously Irvin Jr. decommitted. What's interesting about this to me is when I asked around about this, I don't know how to say this, but Notre Dame people weren't like, oh man, this is a huge loss. It almost seemed like there was a little bit of, I don't want to say planning to how this came out. But it just seemed to me like they were okay with that, and no, Lamar was looking good, and we have other guys that might even be better than that we're looking at too. So it felt like it was just going to be okay, which is rare for Notre Dame people to feel when you lose a recruit. What's your take on that?
Well, I mean, I think that I know we talked about it with the running back coaching change and Devin McCullough coming in from Indiana, guy that just won a Super Bowl ring 2 years ago, 3 years ago, whichever it was, with Kansas City, guy that's been responsible for turning Indiana University of all places into quite the running back factory of putting guys into the league in recent years. Like, it's hard to go up from Lance Taylor compared to where Notre Dame was with running backs, where they were with Lance Taylor, with Kyron Williams, with Chris Tyree being recruited. Not that Tyree's been at the level that I think anyone wanted him to, but he still is only 2 years into this, still got 2 years of eligibility to go. So a lot can still happen there. Logan Diggs, for being a guy that was seen as a 3-star, like I think that he's got a lot higher side than maybe a lot of people thought a year ago. Or going
can I ask you
Sure.
a question about Logan Diggs real quick?
Yeah.
I feel like his injury is not being talked about nearly as much as I thought it was going to be talked about, how much time he's going to miss this year.
I mean, I expected him to be the lead guy going into fall camp.
It's weird to me that I haven't heard that many people talking about that. I know we feel like we have a deep running back room, and maybe that's why that people feel confident.
Like, you do, but you don't at the same time.
Because you
don't have replacing Kyron Williams is damn near impossible. Like, you have to be one of very few schools to be able to turn out a talent like that and replace him with a similar talent. So Notre Dame they're going into this year. You're trying to you had Diggs, I think that was going to be your kind of every down type of guy. Tyree for a speed element, put him in a slot, throw to him, have the versatility of him, really utilize his speed, put him and Lindsey on the field at the same time, make all that speed have to be accounted for, allows you to do different things offensively. And then Estime he's just your bulldozer. That, good Lord, that kid is not 19 years old. Like, that is a goddamn Mack truck that's coming through. Like, there's no way that he is not, like, I don't know, a professional wrestler meets NFL play. Like, that's not, bodies aren't made like that. That's nuts. You didn't have that one guy. Like, they all had their own kind of thing that they do. There wasn't a Kyron in this backfield. So I think you like the depth, but you don't. This isn't supposed to be a knock on any of them, but you don't see any complete back like Kyron either. So it's like, I feel good about what it was pre-injury to Diggs, but I don't feel that high side necessarily also.
Yeah, and I just thought it was funny because,
yeah,
I mean, but that injury occurred in the blue and gold game. And the weird part about it was he came to the Irish Players Club event after the game where I was there. And so he was walking around there, and you could see he had like a medical thing on. Yeah, but he wasn't acting like, oh, my arm's killing me. Like, so I don't think at that time it registered that it was that big of a deal. And then I found out it kind of was, and it's going to knock him out most of the year or a huge chunk. And I just don't feel like that's being mentioned nearly as much as I thought. Now, maybe people are figuring the young kid Price can step in right away. And he was electric in the blue and gold game.
That's more of that speed.
Yeah. And so maybe that's a part of it. But I was genuinely surprised more people are not talking about that being a bigger knock on the depth of that unit that we thought was going to be a stronger part of the overall team. So I don't know. It just kind of surprised me, or it was like, does everybody not realize that how big of a deal that was that he's going to miss time? I don't know. I don't know, but I just thought he'd get more media attention internally.
I mean, I think it's significant because what known commodities do you have offensively going into this year in terms of skill players? Like, you don't know a quarterback, and
Michael
Tyler
Mayer.
Buchner's his
Michael
own
Mayer.
thing, and
There you go.
Yeah, like that's it in its own thing, and we can do 20 minutes on that and
Yeah.
still have a ton to talk about and not cover it all. Running back wise, it's a lot of I like what I see here in parts. I like what I see here in parts. But what's your known commodity? What do you know? My high side of that running back room is Diggs. Like if everyone's healthy, if everyone's that's the one that I think has the most potential of that group right now. And thought he was set for you saw him come on the second half of last year, more and more reps. Really, I mean, he stepped into that Virginia Tech game late when Kyron's getting evaluated for the concussion and didn't have a choice but to get him on the field. And he goes and he produces because Chris Tyree had the turf toe in that game, if you remember. And Diggs kind of gets thrown into action in a huge point and dump off pass to Logan Diggs. He picks up some huge yards, helps him get down the field, end up scoring the game tying touchdown. Then ultimately the game winning field goal, thanks in large part to a true freshman that was really making his first impact. And then he has obviously the leap over the hurdle over the kid in Virginia. And you're like, holy damn, there might be something here. And then you get to see that half of his season's washed away because of a freak injury in the blue gold game. Like, son of a damn it, that stinks. But I don't think it's like make or break for this offense, but it's just one of those things of like you pair that with Patterson's injury that happened in the weight room during spring ball, and it's like freaking injury bug. Like, get the hell out of South Bend. Go find somewhere else. Go find another tree to bark up one stinking time because dealt with it last year, already dealing with it again this year.
Yeah, it's just look at last year, what happened offensive line right away. We were all excited, look at our great freshman that could play right away. And then it didn't even last a half of the first game. And then you're like, one of the guys you were relying on's out. And I'm going, this isn't a good sign of things.
Notre Dame had their freshman left tackle All-American like we all expected. Yeah. It just happened to be a guy that was 245 pounds the senior year of high school and played tight end.
Yeah, it's just so I was just surprised that wasn't made a bigger deal. And when you look at some of I just don't know what we're gonna get out of this offense. And we could go down these different position groups, and there's certain things or guys you feel good about, but overall you don't know quite what you're gonna get. The skill guys, some of it you love, some of it's iffy. Like,
I mean, you want to go skill guys, we can go skill guys and go to wide receiver. I mean, we did running backs a little bit there, and I'm sure we can do extended versions of these for each position, but it's like, if the Fiesta Bowl is any indication, it's like, please God, let us have an offense that is not featuring 12 targets to Braden Lindsey a night. No offense to Braden Lindsey. He's a fun player. He's an electric player. He's an exciting player. I don't need to see him targeted a dozen times in a game. I really need to see Lorenzo Styles take that step that we all think that he's capable of. I want to see Deion Colsey in his second year on campus emerge into that guy that was a very highly sought after wide receiver. Might be early in the game for Tobias Merriweather.
But then you were talking about injuries, don't you? You got Wilkins and Davis. They're both like experienced guys coming back. And they're coming off injury, so you hope you could get them back. You hope the younger guys continue to develop. I think people are waiting for Colsey to step up in a way that Styles did. Like, it's kind of like his turn to take a noticeable jump. And there's going to be plenty of opportunities. And God knows we need it in that room, at least for another year. And then we hope that we're going to have some guys that could come in and compete right away. I mean, it didn't work out for Gallagher, but if a guy likes to be close to home, you can't overcome that one, right? Like if a guy likes his home area team, that's tough to overcome unless you come at it with maybe $5 million or something.
Well,
Do you
yeah,
agree?
yeah. I mean, like you look at that. It's not like you lost this one to, I mean, even Ohio State. It's not like you lost this one to Michigan, who you compete for recruits with that wouldn't
Yeah.
necessarily be local for Gallagher.
Yeah.
Like, you lost this one to a backyard team for him. Yeah, he's from Pennsylvania, and West Virginia's right there, like closer to West Virginia than he is the University of Pitt, even. And he chooses that. Like, what are you going to do? Kid wants to stay near home. That's what he wants. God bless him. Good luck with everything. Like,
Yeah.
you're not going to win. Notre Dame is in these conversations, and I know that we got pissed at Kelly about this for like the Will Shipleys of the world, and I mean that's the name that comes to mind. But there's plenty of others that are out there. And it's like, okay, you went up and you had a great at bat, and you ultimately struck out. And it was like it got to the point where like, I'm tired of being the bridesmaid. Like, it's cool to be in the running for these guys when they have their hats on the table or whatever it might be, but why can't one of these elite guys pick up the Notre Dame hat instead of the Clemson hat or the Ohio State hat or whatever the hell it is? And it didn't happen in this case. But to me, it feels like you're in more of those. You're going to get left off of more as it being a result of being in more. But guess what? Your hat's also going to get picked up. Your commitment's also going to be, it's going to be the University of Notre Dame that the kid says more often than you've heard in the past. And it's not to say people haven't committed. Obviously, recruiting numbers have their classes in themselves. But, I mean, you look at it right now and what you have based on what publication you look at, it's all 5 and 4 stars except for one. Like,
Yeah.
it's not like you just have a handful of commits in here. You're talking about a dozen commits in this class.
Yeah. And I think, you know what? A part of me, just nostalgia, I actually kind of respect that I saw all the pictures of him as a little kid attending those games and now he's going there.
Cool.
I kind of respect that in a way that's rare these days in big time college football. And not losing him to a factory is also makes me feel a little better about it. It does crack me up, though, how Notre Dame people are.
White, the Bears are going to draft him, and he's going to be a bust in the NFL. Just watch. That's what.
There you go. Yeah, that's coming next. But like, it does crack me up a little bit. We were all looking at recruiting, and Gallagher, great athlete, we'd love to have him, and all that. And then right when this happens, then the next thing is like, you know what? Now that I looked at the film, there was no guarantee he was going to be this or that. Like you just
like quarterback his sophomore year.
Yeah.
So how good of a receiver can he really be?
Exactly. So like we all just find these ways to cope. And right away I saw all this. There's no guarantee he was going to be an electric receiver. You know, it isn't that bad. And it just cracks me up how you got to play those games to feel good about it. But like you said, you got to be in it to even have a chance to win it. And that's true for a lot of these guys. Look at a guy like Richard Young, Nick. That is a guy that like wouldn't even be on my Brian Kelly Notre Dame radar at all. At all. That would be a name I see on 247 and just look at it and go, yeah, I'm just going to scroll by this one because that ain't Notre Dame's area.
Yeah.
Just
I mean, that's
look at that.
Some publications have him as a top back. It's at worst a top 3, maybe worst top 4 back in this class. Like, don't want this to sound wrong, but give me some young dick. Like, like, let's go. Like, and the fact that another one of these conversations that you're in on, like, this does not happen. Like, who's the last elite running back that Notre Dame brought in? What's the answer to that question?
I know who it is. I know who it is. It's 5-star James Aldridge, baby.
God, you're probably not kidding.
Seriously, 5-star James Aldridge was supposed to be everything.
And his shoulder went out his freshman year, and he was never anything of what he was supposed to be. But it's like, you have not had that guy in how long? And I still think you get him on campus, that was already an upset. The fact that he's making an official visit, that's an upset in and of itself. But I don't want to, like, how do I put this without sounding like a complete homer and excuse maker for Marcus Freeman? Like, sometimes you have to build that foundation in order to become what you want to become.
Yep.
And I still
Yep.
don't think that Richard Young, I don't think he's going to end up being a Notre Dame running back. But you get Richard Young to show up on campus, then next year you're looking at top running backs in the country. They're like, well, Notre Dame was a finalist for 2 of these guys and didn't end up going there. But guess what that means? It means the depth chart might be a little bit more open my freshman year for an elite running back to step in. And they were interested enough to take visits there. What was it about that drew him in? And was this something that pushes it over the top? Like, this helps. It might not ultimately be Richard Young putting on a Notre Dame hat, wearing a gold helmet, but it's beneficial even if that's the case. Like, this is good news to have, even if it ultimately doesn't result in great news of him wearing blue and gold.
See, this is a very tricky philosophical spot, because I agree with you, and I was struggling like you were to how to put that in words, that even if that doesn't work out, having that caliber of guy discussed and even around or to visit, how that all builds momentum and kind of rises the tide overall. And at the same time, 20 minutes ago, we said we were mad at Brian Kelly for finishing second for a great running back.
Well, also the thing is,
right?
when did he start recruiting half these guys?
Right.
Marcus Freeman's the lead recruiter on all of these guys. Like, that's
like it's just different.
Brian Kelly thought he was the closer, could come in, and it's like a little tough when Saban's on this kid's doorstep at whatever time as soon as recruiting opens. When Dabo's weird, goofy ass is there, when Jim Harbaugh is sleeping in this kid's tree like a creep that he is, like, it's a little hard to just step in that late in the game and get like you're going to have, when you're Notre Dame, you're going to have certain kids that say, yeah, I'm a hell of an athlete and I really value the academics. They buy into the 4 for 40 plan and say that it's more than football. You're going to have a certain amount of kids that, regardless of the coach who's there, are going to just say, yes, I flock to that because the football is pretty damn good. And what it sets me up for life-wise afterwards, I'm going to be in some pretty damn good shape too, as long as I handle my business. So it's going to draw you in, but it's like, that gets you so far. You have to have someone with a persona, with a personality that walks in and is able to sell the hell out of this. Lou was able to do that. I know recruiting was way back different in the 60s, the 70s, but Era was able to do those kind of – hell, I mean, you want to get after it. Jerry Faust was actually able to do that. He couldn't develop talent. He couldn't coach himself out of a Cracker Jack box, but he was able to sell that part of it. And for as successful as Brian Kelly was, that's where one of his shortcomings was. Is that whether it's that it factor that we started this conversation kind of talking about, or whatever you want to call it, like Freeman has that, and it's going to get you further in the recruiting world, which is going to theoretically, I mean, as these coaches end up being as good as they seem like they are, as energetic as they are on the recruiting trail, if they're half as good as in-game coaches and coaches in developing, like, you're looking at a team that's going to be knocking on the door of a national championship here before long.
This is kind of off topic, but not really. You're talking about these running backs and the coaching staff. Didn't McCullough's son just transfer into a South Bend high school and decommit?
Decommitted from Indiana.
Indiana, right? So that's another thing. Right away when they hired him, all of us were going, ooh, there's more meat on this bone. Yeah, like right away, everybody was like, ooh, he's got at least one, if not more sons that are going to be good. So that's going to come back through as well. I'm telling you, this recruiting effort is the tide that's going to raise all Notre Dame ships. And you may lose certain battles that are hurt our feelings. If the quarterback one goes bad, that's going to be a painful one. I'm still committed to the idea this kind of effort is going to pay off no matter what. How could it not? It's just going to.
Well, I mean, because look, say worst case scenario, Dante Moore goes to Texas A&M, goes to Oregon, he ain't going to Michigan no matter what E.J. Holland writes. But like, say he goes somewhere else that's not Notre Dame. Then you're scurrying right now. You've only offered 7 quarterbacks. You're not in on seemingly any of the other 6. Most of them have made commitments already. You're not in on the Arch Manning sweepstakes whatsoever. Like, you're going to be scraping in order to bring a quarterback in this class, and it's going to be done out of necessity, not necessarily because you love a guy, is what it's going to end up being. But even if that happens, Where are you at? You look at how many classes Brian Kelly brought in with this team, with this program, I should say, that lacked that quarterback, that had a middle tier 3-star-ish quarterback that came in that you're like, all right, am I supposed to get excited about this kid? Like, this seems like it was kind of done just because you needed to get a body in there. And he recruited well at other positions, but I wouldn't say that it was like fantastic. This, even if you don't get Dante Moore, you are fantastic at damn near every other spot right now. Now, depth needs to be added. Running back, we talked about earlier. Defensive side of the ball, you can use some help in the secondary, obviously. Offensive line numbers need to go up. Receiver numbers are really freaking important this year. You got to close the deal on some of these guys, especially since Gallagher's staying home and staying near to home, at least in West Virginia. But even worst case scenario, where you're at right now, you're bringing better athletes in than what's been here, even with the uptick in recruiting in recent years, even if Moore is not ultimately a Notre Dame player.
Yep. And it's Notre Dame's quickest and only way to not get killed in every playoff game is to build it this way. Obviously, the coaching needs to come together. Freeman needs to be good and competent in-game coaching, all of that. But this is the engine, and it's being done the right damn way for the first time since the 115-pound yellow-haired guy with big glasses, okay? It's finally being done the right way. It's going to pay off. I cannot wait to see 2 or 3 of these classes stacked. And then you have depth and talent all over, and that breeds more competition between guys that want to play higher level. I love where that's headed.